fifth graders, welcome to your math lesson for today. For today, you will need your 5B textbook, your 5B workbook, paper, and pencil. Go ahead and pause if you need to get those things, then come on back and join me. So at this point, I've been saying kind of repeatedly for a couple of weeks now that we're getting ready for this upcoming quarterly exam. And so we're getting real close on that. That's going to actually be happening next week on Thursday. So we're at like about a week and a half out. So all of these warm-up problems that I've been repeatedly telling you are going to prepare you for this test is going to be coming soon. So those of you who have been working hard with me on these, I'm hoping that you'll see that upcoming test and feel like, yeah, we've totally been working on these. So for today, we're going to take a look at some of our fraction work. And this is going to be just a little bit trickier because you are now at the point where when you're dividing, you know how to express quotients as a decimal. So we have to start paying attention to these directions here. The directions say that we're supposed to find the value and express your answer in simplest form. So what that means, if you're talking about simplest forms, that means fractions, okay? So if you are looking at fractions, then that means you need to express your remainder of a division problem as a fraction. The remainder is a fraction over the divisor. So at this point, go ahead and pause and then come back and see how you did. All right, so fifth graders, for your division, can you see? This will be easier for me. For your division, we're doing 90 divided by 8. So 8 goes into 9 one time with a remainder of 1. Goes into 10 2 times. Excuse me, 1 time with a remainder of 2. That's where the 2 is. So we have 11. And so we know that with decimals, we can add a decimal point and then bring it down, but we're not going to do that. We're going to just go back to our old way of expressing this as a fraction over the divisor. So 11 and 2/8. But remember, in simplest form, we can simplify this to 11 and 1/4. So our answer for number 1 should be 11 and 1/4. For 2, we need to find a common denominator, which in this case is 15. So we're going to be adding something over 15 plus something over 15. So how do we get from 3 to 15? 3 times 5 is 15, so 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15, so 2 times 3 is 6. We end up with 16/15. We always check. Can it be made proper? Can it be simplified? And this one can be made proper. It's equal to 1 and 1/15. Subtraction or addition of mixed numbers. Remember, we're always starting with the whole number. So 5 minus 2 is 3. Then we want to be finding a common denominator, which is 10. 10 is our common denominator. So 7/10 stays the same, but 1/5 becomes 2/10, which we can't subtract. So we have to make this improper. So 3 times 10 is 30, plus 2, we get 32/10. 32/10 minus 7/10. Sorry, my handwriting's getting a little messy as I get further down. 32/7 minus 32/10, minus 7/10, there we go, is 25/10, which we can make proper and simplify to 2.5. There we go. So this is, again, a good checkpoint. If you are having a tough time, if this didn't go very well, then absolutely come visit during office hours and we can work through some of these problems and get you prepared for that upcoming test. All right, so the Thursday before break, fifth graders, we worked on multiplying and dividing by one-digit numbers. We're going to continue that today, though it will look a little bit different. When we worked on this before break, all of our answers came out to nice, even numbers. And today, that's not going to be the case. We're going to have decimals that are not terminating, or maybe are terminating later than what the problem is instructing you to stop at. So we're going to work a little bit on what this looks like. What do we do when our decimal is not ending, not terminating? And what do we do as we're making that division? And then multiplication a little bit as well. Okay, so with that in mind, fifth graders, I guess I should say just division, not multiplying. So we'll take this away. Dividing by a one-digit number. when the decimal does not terminate. So let's go ahead and open our textbooks to page 19. And we're going to get into our lesson for today while I flip you around. So as with before, we're going to continue to be estimating. Again, the purpose of this estimation as we're doing our division is to help us. Are we getting our decimal point in the right answer? We should be able to compare our estimate to our answer and then have some amount of confidence in our answer. So 4A is starting us off on estimating the value of 21 3600ths divided by 9. So how do we do that? Remember, we want to round prudently. So if we're dividing by 9, what can we round 21 to that's going to be evenly divisible by 9? So we're going to round 21. The closest multiple of 9 is actually 18. So 18 divided by 9 equals 2. So our estimate is 2. This is going to give us an idea when we go into our actual answer about where we're at. So now we're being asked to find the value of 21 3600ths divided by 9 correct to one decimal place. So this is the rule that we're going to need to be doing. If we're going correct to one decimal place, that means that we're actually going to be rounding our answer to one decimal place. So we want to carry our division actually out to 2 decimal places and then round to that first decimal place. So let's practice it. So for 4B, we'll do it right here. We want to neatly write our division problem, 21 3600ths divided by 9. And as a reminder, with our division, we want to line the decimal point in our dividend up with the decimal point in our quotient. Okay. And now we do our division. 9 does not go into 2. It goes into 21 twice. And again, 5th graders, you should be working along with me as we're working on this. 2 times 9 is 18. We subtract and get 3. And bring down our 3. 9 goes into 33 3 times. 3 times 9 is 27, and we subtract and get 6. Now, the problem tells us we need to go correct to one decimal place. So we actually need to go a step further. We need to do our division to this second decimal place so we can feel confident that we're rounding accurately to one decimal place. So 9 goes into 66 how many times? It goes in 7 times. And so now we're running into what we're going to see today, right? We still have a remainder. And even if we added a 0 and brought it down, we'd still have a remainder. And we'd continue to have a remainder. This is not going to terminate. So what we're practicing today is what do we do with decimals if they don't end? So in this case, we've done our division to the second decimal place. We've been asked to do it correct to one decimal place. So now we have our rounding is approximately 2 4/10, because remember, when we're rounding to this decimal place, we look 1 to the right and it tells us what we should be doing. Okay, now we can compare 2 4/10. Yeah, that seems accurate. And again, it's not like 100% perfect, but we didn't end up with 24 over here. We ended up with 2 4/10. And so that's our idea that, yep, we did a pretty good job. Our estimate and our answer are pretty close. Okay, let's turn the page. So similarly, we're going to be estimating and finding the answer. Though in this case, we're actually being asked to find it correct to 2 decimal places. So 5A, estimate the value of 24 6500ths divided by 8. So we want to think about 24. What can we round this to that's close to 24 and divisible by 8? And the answer is 24 itself. 24 is divisible by 8. So our estimate is going to be 3. We have an estimate of 3. Now we want to carefully copy down our division problem and do it, our division problem here. So corrected 2 decimal places means that we actually have to carry out our division to the 3rd decimal place. So we're actually going to have to go out one more here and then round to the 2nd decimal place. And of course, we want to remember to line up our decimal points. So 8 does not go into 2. It goes into 24 3 times. We multiply 3 times 8 is 24, and we get 0. And bring down our 6. How many times does 8 go into 6? 0 times, and we absolutely need to remember to put that 0 there. It is essential for us to be getting the right answer. 0 times 8 is 0, and we subtract and get 6. Now we bring down our 5. How many times does 8 go into 65? It goes in 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64 with a remainder of 1. So now, remembering that we need to go correct to 2 decimal places, our rule is that we need to go 1 further. So we need to do our division to that 3rd decimal place and then round. So how many times does 8 go into 10? Just 1 time with a remainder of 2. And again, we could keep going and going and going. However, we are rounding at this point. So now that we've gone to our 3rd decimal place, we can round to the 2nd. That 1 there tells us that our 8 stays the same. So our answer here is going to be 3 8/100. And again, comparing to our estimate, I think we did pretty well. All right. So looking at our textbook practice problems for the remainder of our lesson, it's all saying corrected 2 decimal places. So what that means is that we need to do our division to the 3rd decimal place and then round. Also, in this case, it's telling us not to estimate, though sometimes in our workbook it will tell us to estimate, but for now we're just finding the value. It's not a bad idea, though, to keep estimating if you're feeling shaky about where your decimal point should go. So we're going to do, as usual, a few together and a few on our own. So we're going correct to 2 decimal places. So in my case, I'm just going to add that 0 because I know I have to do my division out to that 3rd decimal place. That's what I'm going to have to do so that I can round. And then I'm going to line up my decimal points to make sure that I am getting my place value correct. And now I can do my division. 9 goes into 0 times. With a decimal, we want to put a 0 here and not an X because we always want some kind of a digit before our decimal point, even if that digit is a 0. That is the proper way of doing our math, okay? How many times does 9 go into 7? Again, 0, and we need to have that 0 there for our place value. 0 times 9 is 0, so we do our multiplication and subtraction and bring it down to get a 77. How many times does 9 go into 77? It goes in 8 times. 8 times 9 is 72. We subtract and get 5 and bring down a 0. How many times does 9 go into 50? It goes in 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45 with a remainder of 5. So we can stop there. If we're going correct to 2 decimal places, we can stop at the 3rd. And again, this kind of shows us why we need to keep going on. Because if you stopped here, you would have 8/100. But when we round, after looking at our 3rd decimal place, we see that what we should be rounding to is 9/100. So the correct answer here is 9/100. We're going to try 6B now. So we want to copy down the problem carefully. When I'm copying down for division, I like to have spaces between my numbers. I wouldn't necessarily have this much space when I'm writing a number out, but for division, it's useful to make sure that we're neat and having room for our work. Okay. We need to go correct to 2 decimal places, which we remember means that we need to have 3 decimal places in our answer. So I'm adding 2 zeros here so that I have my 3 decimal places. So 7 does not go into 6. And we can have an X there because it's not the digit closest to our decimal point. Now 7 goes into 62 how many times? 8 times. 8 times 7 is 56. And we subtract and get 6. And bring down our 7. 7 goes into 67 how many times? 9 times. 9 times 7 is 63. We subtract and get 4 and bring down our 0. 7 goes into 40 how many times? 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35 with a remainder of 5. And we bring down our 0. 7 goes into 50 how many times? 7 times with a remainder of 1. And now we can stop there. We don't have to keep adding zeros and bringing it down because this decimal will continue to go on. So we can stop. So now we're going to round to that second decimal place. So when we round our answer, we should get 8 and 96 hundredths, right? The 7 tells us to add 1 more to our 5. Let's try C. Again, we want to copy the problem down neatly. I'm actually going to move my textbook aside so that I can have a little bit more space. So we're on 6C, 9 and 65 hundredths divided by 8. We know we have to go correct to 2 decimal points, so we're going to add that third decimal place, a 0 there, to make sure that we're going as far as we need to. And line up our decimal points. 8 goes into 9 one time. And we get a remainder of 1 and bring down our 6. 8 goes into 16 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. No remainder. We bring down our 5. 8 goes into 5 0 times, and we want to make sure we put that 0 there. 0 times 8 is 0 with a remainder of 5. We bring down this 0, so now 8 goes into 50 how many times? 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48 with a remainder of 2. And we stop there, 5th graders. We don't need to go further because we're only going correct to 2 decimal places. So now we want to round to that second decimal place. This 6 here tells us to add 1 more, so our correct answer is 1 and 21 hundredths. I'm going to guide you through one more, 5th graders, and then I'm going to ask you to try 2 of these on your own. So we're going to do 6D from the textbook, copying our problem down neatly. Remembering now, again, I've kind of been showing us this habit. If we're going correct to 2 decimal places, we want to add that 0. And now we do our division. Actually, we should put our decimal point here and then do our division. 6 does not go into 41. Sorry, into 4. It does go into 41, and it goes in 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36 with a remainder of 5. And then we bring down a 5. 6 goes into 55 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54 with a remainder of 1. And we bring down our 1. 6 goes into 11 one time with a remainder of 5. And then bring down our 0. 6 goes into 50 8 times with a remainder of 2. And we stop there. We don't need to go any further. Now we want to go back and round our answer to the second decimal place. The 8 tells us to add 1 more, so we end up with 6 and 92 hundredths. All right, 5th graders, I would like you to pause. I would like you to work on 6E, 6F. When you're done, come on back and see how you did. So for 6E, we're going to copy the problem carefully. Hopefully you remembered we're supposed to be dividing to that third decimal place. So you want to add that 0, and then you want to add your decimal point. 4 does not go into 2. It goes into 27 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24 with a remainder of 3. Bring down the 6. 4 goes into 36 9 times, and 9 times 4 is 36 with our remainder of 0. We bring down the 9. How many times does 4 go into 9? 2 times. 2 times 4, oops, I forgot to write that, is 8 with a remainder of 1. We bring down the 0. How many times does 4 go into 10? 2 times with a remainder of 2. And we stop there. And actually, this is an example where you might look at that and say, well, if I added a 0 and brought it down, then I could put 4 into 20 and it would be an even, it would end, the decimal would terminate. But we're practicing just going to that second decimal place. So now we're going to round our answer. This 2 here tells us to leave it alone. So our answer is 6 and 92, or our answer is approximately 6 and 92 hundredths. And F, again, copying the problem carefully and then doing that division. And again, hopefully you remembered if you're going correct to 2 decimal places, then we need to go to our third decimal place. So 3 does not go into 2. It goes into 26 times. 6 times 3 is 18 with a remainder of 2, and we bring down our 9. 3 goes into 29 9 times. 9 times 3 is 27 with a remainder of 2, and we bring down our 3. 3 goes into 23 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21 with a remainder of 2. We bring down our 0. 3 goes into 26 times. 6 times 3 is 18 with a remainder of 2, and we stop there and go on back and do our rounding. So the 6 tells us to add 1 more. So now we have 6 and 98 hundredths. All right, 5th graders. Again, remember, that's your checkpoint. How did that go? Did it go well? Or did you find that it was tricky? If it was tricky and you want to talk it through more, you want a little practice, come to office hours, we can chat about it, okay? Okay, so for today, your practice is in your workbook, okay? This is your practice, not your homework. Your practice is in your workbook. So you're going to go ahead and solve those. You'll notice that there's 2 different sets of instructions. So for number 1 in your workbook, it says to find the value correct to 1 decimal place. So that means you're going to divide out to 2 decimal places and then round to the first. For problem 2, you're supposed to find the value of each correct to 2 decimal places, which is what we were just working on. Divide to 3 and then round to the second decimal place. So you want to make sure that you're reading the directions and following those carefully. Once you've finished your workbook page, you want to use the key to check and then make any corrections. And again, if the corrections are difficult, if it's not making sense, then that's your cue to come to office hours and work through some of these problems with any number of adults who are here and ready to work with you. Then your homework is the attachment that is 7. It's like homework for 7.4a day 2. So there's a homework attachment that you need to work on, and then you're going to submit a picture of that work, and you can do it on any piece of paper. I've said this before, but any of the attachments, you don't have to print them. You can just solve them on a piece of notebook paper, workbook paper, whatever you've got. loose leaf paper and then submit a picture. I wouldn't do it on a workbook paper. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But the other stuff makes sense. Okay, so use those checkpoints to see how you're doing. And make sure that you're going one decimal place further than what you're being instructed to, and then do that rounding. Okay, we're here, we're ready. If you have questions, come see us. Good luck.